female entrepreneurs turned besties share on life, business, and the journey through the mess. Join their community with every new episode for connection, education, a few laughs, and the hype energy like a bathroom full of drunk girls at a bar. It's okay.
We're your friends now! Hey everybody, it's Biz.
Hey, it's Katie.
And it's Ashleigh. Welcome back to another episode of We're Your Friends Now. Congratulations, you have the 3 best friends ever. And today we are doing, so I saw a quote, well, not a quote, I saw a tweet that was on Instagram, as one does these days. And I really loved it. And it made me think that we should maybe talk about this for an episode. And so I'm going to read this tweet to you. And it is, you must learn to be disliked or you will find yourself stuck in a prison of other people's beliefs.
Ooh.
So today we're talking about accepting, not always being liked, and how to walk in your own authenticity, even if that does not please others. Which I feel like all 3 of us have at least at some point struggled with some people-pleasing tendencies.
No, never.
Never.
Unrelatable content.
Katie will have nothing to contribute today. It's just a really free-flowing conversation around our journeys through that and that evolution. And it changes so much because, like, think about being a middle school and high school girl and like your sole focus almost is getting people to like you. It's like your one and only thing. Like, I need to fit in. I need to be liked. Are my clothes good enough? Are my shoes good enough? Did I do my hair good? It is all, at least I thought about in high school and middle school. I would get questions wrong on tests so that my score wouldn't be perfect because I didn't want to get made fun of or be disliked for being smart.
What?
100%.
God.
Oh my
And if somebody wanted to copy my homework or like any, yep, sure, go ahead, because I wanted so badly to be liked.
Oh, man, I know I'm having such a hard time even staying focused because I just keep thinking like in my head how much I'm sucking at this with Liv right now. But it's like in the moment, right? It's like I just get like capsized by her emotions and like I get in this shrinky space. And then I'm like later, I'm like, wait, none of this matters. Like I need to teach you none of this matters. Like, what am I doing? And so it was so timely. Timely. And with it, and I think about like, you know, for the first time or for like the first, I don't know, probably high school and then in college for sure, I always felt like I needed to like go to a new place, like to recreate myself, right? And I feel like that's where it first represented itself with me, was like I just so suffocated with this like imagery of like being trapped in other people's prison of like who I was. I didn't have the freedom. And so that like going to college out of state, I think was like the first time that I dipped toes in that. And it's been a long, but I was 17. I mean, I was 17. This is like really the second half of my life. I guess it's taken me to figure this shit out. And I'm still figuring it out. Thank God. I feel like it's timely for me too. Because I just had like advancements in that department recently. But every single advancement I have, I feel like it clicks a little bit more like the older I get. And ironically, you know, I turned 37 last week while it was happening. And every single, yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But like every single year in my 30s that I turn, I'm reminded of when I was turning 30 and people told me that my 30s would be my best. And that's when you learn how to like not give a damn. And so it's one of those things that I'm mindful of. Did y'all hear that too? Did y'all ever hear that? Yeah. Has that been your experience in your earlier 30s than me?
I was a crier. I was a birthday crier. Every single year on my birthday, just tears. I was so scared of the idea of getting older and just birthdays not living up to expectations and whatever. And then somewhere around like 27, it finally clicked that like I didn't have to have these expectations. Getting older was a gift. And it just continuously got better. And instead of fearing turning 30, I started to look forward to it because of all the women that were like, dude, your 30s are amazing. And I was like, okay, I'm so ready for that. I'm ready for the idea of that gift of being able to let go and not care. And by the time I hit 30, I was like, oh, I've like, I feel like I've been in my 30s because I've been so looking forward to this. But it really changed. It truly changed when you drop that stupid ass 2 off of your age. It is like the shackles are broken, baby. Like I do not care anymore. Like if a man is making me uncomfortable, I will scream in his face. Like the freedom and the liberation of so much.
Maybe
in my
we should
30s.
break this up into decades, this conversation up into decades of like what we
I
would
love that.
like from a teenager perspective in our 20s and now in our 30s. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Did you, so going back
What about
to
you, Katie?
my people pleasing tendencies of middle school and high school and being so afraid of not fitting in and wanting to fit in and still struggling with like the teenage angst of wanting to be different and special and whatever is a lot to balance. I don't know if you guys have that same experience.
So, I mean, my high school experience was weird because I was gone at doctor's appointments like a lot. I wasn't at school like a ton. I very much was not popular in high school. Not even like you couldn't even try and pretend that I was a little bit popular. It was just not at all a thing. And it was really hard for me because I would go to church and have friends at church. I still don't think I was like popular or whatever, but I would always do like leadership things at church or even at school or like things that I would join. I would be like the leader of, but I wasn't popular. And I always wondered what the disconnect was of why like older people liked me. And I just attributed it to like my brother's 10 years older than me, whatever. But it was really hard, I think, when you're a teenager to understand, like, obviously now I understand it much more. My whole view on people pleasing is different, but like, I also was built up with all of these like expectations and standards around me of like, if I didn't perform exactly how I was supposed to, that I was just like a mess. I was so scared of letting anybody down or like not being exactly who people thought I would. So it wasn't even that they didn't like me. It's like I didn't perform well enough. And so, and that's, I know I've talked about this before, but like all my perfectionism that I've struggled with totally came from that. But it was really hard. I think just like most high school girls, you spend a lot of time crying. You spend a lot of time wondering what's wrong with you. You spend a lot of time thinking like it'll never get better and all of that. And like, newsflash, it does. If you get better, it gets better.
Yeah, if you do. Yeah. I think that's an important caveat there.
Yeah. I like your idea of decades, Biz, and I'm gonna say like probably a lot of my growth happened in my late 20s and then early 30s. And this is such a cool conversation because to quote the great Kyle Evans, like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm someone's bowl of gumbo.
We put all kinds of weird shit in gumbo down here.
But I think that like looking back, it's like you've really made me think, Ashleigh, of like how I truly feel now about this topic and how I did feel about it is just so drastically different. It's really fascinating.
So fascinating. Biz, what about your experience in that decade of like the teenage angst years?
I've really blocked out as much of my high school experience as possible. as was indicative of that little blurb this morning that walked down memory lane in our chat. I'd have to sit there for a minute, but it's like wild. Like what I was saying earlier, I just have to sit and laugh at it now because it's so, I feel like it's so unrecognizable. But yet the probably 2 or 3 people that I still talk to from my 1,500 person high school would probably still say that there's similarities. But yeah, I hated it. I struggled really hard. I never had a group. I don't have friends that I've known from then. I bounced around everywhere. It sucked. I couldn't wait to get out. That sucked so hard that's why I went to college. I said earlier I had to recreate myself. That's where the nickname Busy came from. I recreated my name as a 17-year-old. Was like, Elizabeth is gone. And I'll never forget, y'all. I was standing in line at college to register for my classes, and I had to have a parent because I was only 17 to sign my forms. And so my mom was with me, and she was like, "Oh, I'm Busy's mom." You can't say it like that, Mom. You can't say it like that. You got to commit. Like, and so then I took my dad with me the rest of the time because he didn't say anything. So yeah, so it wasn't really then. And then I was still a teenager all through college, pretty much. I mean, I didn't turn 21 till I was a senior in college. And so, yeah, college was really great for me because I went to a liberal arts school that really focused on like how to think and not like what to think. So my papers and all of that were around like my feelings, and I'm a big advocate for that. I think it really is the catalyst that changed my life, was getting into that environment. But then my 20s, oh man, this is like, all right. So this is I think really kind of, oh man, this is hard to talk about. But in my 20s is where I really had the pattern of befriending the wrong people. And I put myself constantly in positions with people that were happy to build the prison walls because they would see, the spark of my excitement or my grit, or which we've talked about multiple times, that can be unhealthy, right? But like how we have these, like using shame as a trigger, and like if I'm using shame as a trigger in my brain, well, that makes me a really great employee, right? Or it makes me a really great friend because, whatever. And so like when you're around people like that, it really sucks. And that's what I think I got caught up in my 20s. And eventually I stumbled into pools with people like you guys in the room. And that was like the first time that I was faced with, wait, this isn't normal. This isn't how the world works, that you give, and then ask. And, here we are. Right. So like really my 20s was when I really screwed myself up. I mean, I got into some bad spots. And those arenas are also where like the champions rose. Right. Yeah. And so like, that's where like, it kind of made the point, like what you said, Katie, about like choosing, like all of this is an individual arena that we all step into. And it's choosing how you're going to show up and if you're going to be a gladiator. So I didn't learn that. So my 20s sucked. I mean, I could go 20s, like exact examples.
Your 20s are just a mess. I don't know anybody that's gotten out of their 20s and been like, that went exactly how I expected it.
That was a great way of putting it. Yeah. But you know what though? Like it does, because the wisdom on the other side is that like so Ashleigh, right? Like how you said in our first episode, like when you're scared, or one of our first episodes, like when you're scared of something, that like makes you do it. Like I've heard that so many times since we started doing this, and I'm like, God, Ashleigh is so much wiser than all of us at the time.
Thanks, really because I speed ran all the lessons in my 20s. No, it's so
Yeah.
true though. It's 20s were a hot mess for me too. Obviously, so I obviously had Cassie, my daughter, when I was 19. Just created an interesting environment for learning and being in your 20s. And when you have this little baby that you're supposed to take care of, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know how to take care of you, but we're gonna figure this out together. So I didn't get like a traditional college experience. I went to community college because we couldn't afford to have my sister and I both in a 4 year at the same time. So my sister was already at a 4 year. I went to community college, which was fine. I personally am not a huge advocate of it. If it's the only way you can get to college, do it. Otherwise, college is so much about your environment, like Biz said, and the people that you have the chance to meet. Going to a community college, the people that you meet are very interesting, but they are not people that I wanted to know the rest of my life. You're in a classroom with like, I no joke, would have like a 70-year-old that never went to college. And so they just were doing it. And it was cool. It was great to meet them. Um, but they weren't like going to be my friend when I was 20. And then you have like the single mom in her 40s going back to college after the divorce. And I'm like, can't relate at the time. No clue what's going on there. You just have like, I don't know. It's a weird room to get into. It's interesting, but it just isn't, I've got friends that did do the more traditional 4 year that were in like sororities, and they're still best friends with all these people. They go, they're the people that have weddings every single month to go to. And so I'm like, if I could go back in time, I would have gone down that route. But it just created a weird choppy environment because I finished my 2 years at my community college, and then I took a break when I was pregnant with Ezra, and then I re-signed up to finish my last 2 years at a university right after I had him. So my college experience was very much head down, get the work done, get the degree, nothing about like the rest of the college experience and the way it can help you grow up. So a lot of my growth came from personal life and real estate. I I so remember signing up for that class bold for the first time, not knowing what I was going into, and walking out 8 weeks later a completely different person. I had no idea what that kind of class was going to do to me. Like it changed what I thought about the world. It changed what I thought about myself. It extremely changed the way I realized other people related to me. And it was then that I figured out like when you push back or set a boundary or say, I'm going to do this because it's in the best interest of my family, it's in the best interest of me, and people suddenly don't like that, it is so uncomfortable. And it is so hard to put your boundary and say, like, no, I have to do this way. And it's okay. And it's not like, I'm not asking for too much. And then you slowly realize, like, oh my gosh, the way I'm living my life is because of the way other people are reacting to my boundaries. And I don't like that they don't like my boundaries. So I'm going to move them closer or further or whatever.
Wow. Okay, so you just let's pause on what you just said, and the way I'm living my life is because of other people's reactions to my boundaries. That so sums up people pleasing. And I think that that's the realization that you have to have in order to cross over the hump of like, do you want to be free in who you are and like get to know yourself? It's a rocky, scary road because you have to be able to admit that you have a lot of work to do. Or do you want to continue to like, when I was in that phase, I always had this like tense, nervous, anxious feeling
Mm-hmm.
about the way somebody would react to something,
Yep.
and yeah, you just sum that up so perfectly. It is that moment where you realize like I care more about their reactions than my own happiness.
Totally. Totally. That's yeah, absolutely. That's what I was always anticipating and being like, this person's going to say this or they're going to be
Mhm.
upset and I'm going to have to deal with it. Even if I'm willing to accept like they don't like it, I'm going to have to deal with the fallout of the way I
Right.
was being mistreated by the people that
Yeah.
should have been my biggest supporters and weren't.
Right.
Yeah. So there was something that Brianna Weiss said, and the room that I was in that really resonated. And she said when she's in these funky spots, that she is not going to make it worse on herself in her mind. And like what you're describing, Ashleigh, is kind of a place where I think I go and I like walk into a room and I'd be like so confident, like I know. And then like you're faced with that, right? And you just immediately want to conform, right?
Yeah.
You want to conform. And that's the little piece that I'm taking away with it, is to kind of remember that we always are in our corner, right? At all times. But that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the 20s, man, that was a mess. It was an up and down. And it was a few steps forward, few steps back situation for me for a long time. And there was a lot of distrust with myself of whether or not what I was asking for or what I was doing was too much. There's that second guessing, like, well, if people don't like it, then maybe it is too much. Maybe it is too harsh of an ask. I don't know if you guys struggled with that too, like learning to trust yourself and your boundaries and say, like, these are healthy, these aren't too much.
Yeah, so my like a lot of mine came from one specific relationship, and it's like it's one of those things, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once I realized what was happening, I was like, oh boy. And so I had almost like a blanket moment of, do I trust myself enough to create my own boundaries? Because I knew once I created them, I'd be like, all right, well, that's that, you know? And so it took me a while, I think, to get to that point of saying like, okay, I'm comfortable now. Like I'm strong enough in who I am now. And I know the work that I've done on myself that I can take that step of like implementing boundaries. And then, I mean, then I learned, obviously, it's like a lifelong thing of reevaluating boundaries or the reason behind them or whatever. And there's so much more to it. But for me, it was like just a one time, like, is this the time to leap? You know, and it was.
Yeah.
And I would say like everything changed then in my life.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was that specific time that it was to leap, or was it the fact that you leaped, that you leapt in general? You know?
Probably both. I mean, for me, like I said, all of my people pleasing tendencies they were a result of one relationship. And so the leap was like looking back and realizing that I had tried to implement boundaries without actually recognizing that that's what they were. And so like the moment that I decided to cease contact was like me leaping. And so I think there's probably validity in both things, Biz, that like the act of leaping is just as important. And also like that was such a pivotal moment. Like I legitimately remember exactly where I was, exactly when it was, the feeling, like I can still see it of like when I did it. And it was kind of the precipice for me, like instilling boundaries in every part of my life.
Yeah, I have a lot of trauma around this, actually. Because
I think we all do. Do you hear how like this episode is so different? We're all taking like deep breaths and speaking like really gently about it.
Well, I know I do, because I keep losing my train of thought like a lot. And that just is me squirreling around to different things. But one of the most traumatic experiences, or the most traumatic experience in my life, are whenever key relationships, friendships in my life disintegrate. And have always left me, and they left me in a place of like, what's wrong with me? You know, and like there's got to be some disconnect in like who I think I am and what I'm projecting and like doing. And I really like internalized that for years. And so like, Katie, to hear you, so I think that's why that Brianna bit comes to my brain for me, because I realize that it's security in like not being alone, right? That
Yep.
I think is like the root of it. And the learning, and what I I hope more than anything I teach my daughter is that you have to like yourself. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and how and like how important that is to just care about what you think about yourself.
And why you like yourself.
And why you like yourself. Yes, thank you. And why. Thank you for giving me that additional little nugget there, Ashleigh. Like that helps me break it down into bite-sized chunks to teach her and therefore teach myself.
Yeah.
So with that, with on why, but sorry, I lost the train of thought again because I'm really
Sorry.
doing the work right this second. Yeah.
It really is. It's a lot to process. And I think Katie mentioned, like, you know, she was setting boundaries, but she didn't realize that she was. A lot of
Mhm.
time when we waddled through a lot of this stuff, but we haven't always processed what it was.
Mhm.
And there's this word in therapy, and I'm probably not going to remember it, but it's like when you intellectualize your feelings and
Mhm.
pretend that that is processing them. When you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, when so and so did this, it made me sad, and I was sad because of this, and this boundary was violated, and so this. I'm done processing, and it's like, but did you feel your feelings about it? And you're like, ew, no.
Uh, hi, my name's Biz. My therapist gave me a handout on how to feel my feelings.
So
And another way that shows up is this game that I play in my head. That's like, well, what relationships led me to this exact moment, right? Like that's another way
Yeah.
that shows
It's a
up.
fun
Like
game to
if
play,
you
really.
can track it through decisions, very unhealthy habit. Thanks, Ashleigh.
I think that a lot of times the feeling of tension or having fights or disagreements is the sign of like an unrecognized broken boundary, which is what finally
Mm.
got me to realize like that's what I had been trying to do. Didn't have the understanding that that's what I was doing. Therefore, it wasn't clearly explained, and like clarity is key, clear is kind, all of those things, you know. And so that had like I had to change my course of action for a bit to really adjust to that because I didn't realize that that's what was happening. So, but to further on your point, Ashleigh, Biz, you've always made a comment that like I always know exactly what I want. And it's funny to me every time you say that because I don't. Like like when I talk to people about new roles and they're like, "Where do you want to be in 5 years?" I can tell you like things I want for my family, but I don't know exactly what I want. What I know is my mission and my purpose for being here in life. I want alignment and that's it. And when I realized that about myself, it also became true in like how I felt. Like I have done so much deep work on myself and gotten very clear on my mission and who I am. And so it doesn't matter if somebody doesn't like me because I have a lot of reasons to like myself. And I don't say that with an ego. I just say like God created a really cool, unique person. And like, who am I to not like that about me? Like I've been gifted with this life and with these qualities. And sure, I have people that I really trust their opinion to call me out when, you know, I have an
Yeah.
opportunity for growth or whatever. But like I think that there's such a strong confidence in feeling like, am I doing my best? Like, am I still growing? Is my arrow pointed in the right direction? And if so, then like, okay, like I'm fine. And here's why.
Yep. Well, I think it goes back to Biz saying that, you know, she had made the wrong friends consistently.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that rooted in all of our stories of having key relationships with people that made us afraid of being disliked, and we were living in the prisons of their belief systems. And it's hard because at the same time, it's, if somebody is really coming to me and like, Ashleigh, you are straight up an asshole. And, like there are people that I would trust to tell me that, like Biz and Katie, if either,
100%.
of you, if either of you came to me and were like, Ashleigh, that you're way out of line, I'd be like, oh, okay, we are reevaluating what is going on here. But the difference, the fundamental difference is the foundation of the relationships with people
Yeah.
that I trust and that I say, look, these people know me and they know my values. And I'm not afraid of doing something and Biz being like, that seems a little bit out of left field. I don't know if that's going to work out for you.
Yeah.
That's fine. And that doesn't bother me. Whereas, I know that there's, what is it called? The popcorn? What is it? The peanut gallery.
Oh,
Sorry,
the
guys. I
popcorn
really
ceiling?
struggle.
That's charades. What the
I'm stealing. I have to break through the.
I'm so glad y'all didn't see that. I mean, I'm so sad y'all didn't see that.
I really struggle with colloquialisms for whatever reasons. The peanut gallery. I know that there is a peanut gallery out there of people that judge what I'm doing. They snicker about it. They send each other screenshots. I know it because I know that it's a universal truth, not because I'm aware of who those people are. I don't have anyone in my life that's like, hey, FYI, so and so. I'm like, because they know I don't care about that. And it's so funny because there's this trend on social media right now where it's like, imagine not liking me and I'm just, and then you show yourself doing something. And yesterday I got my kids a paint by number and none of them want to do it. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to do it then. So I'm sitting there doing a little paint by number thing. Kevin's like, imagine not liking me and I'm just doing a paint by number.
But like, it's so true, right? Like the difference is you don't live in this fear of rejection from like random people who really shouldn't matter to you. It's like if somebody in your life who you've chosen to listen to comes with you, you understand that it's coming from a place of love, care with them, not fear of judgment of them, because the people who are going to judge you, you don't really care anyway. And I think that's a huge difference maker too, is like once you realize, why do I care so much about what they think when I don't even like them? And that doesn't have to be an aggressive thing of just, there's people who I'm not going to mesh with, and that's fine. It doesn't mean I like actively dislike them or hate them. They're just going to do their thing over there. But like when you're able to have people in your life who you know that they love you enough to like have those conversations to make sure you're in alignment, that's like a really cool person to have around you, instead of like always worried that I have to act this way or so and so won't like me. Like, okay. I
got to bring up the rule of thirds again, because that testing that theory really is what helped catapult me into the land of not give a damn. But when you walk in a room, you split into thirds. Third people are gonna hate you no matter what you do. They're just not gonna, they're not in the right mood. There's a third of the people in the room that love you. And then there's the third of the people in the room that haven't made their mind up yet. And I was conditioned, I think I was conditioned as a small child to getting people to like me, for all of us in all of these different ways, right? And then whenever those of us that are good at it seem to fumble into sales in some way or another naturally. And so then you lean more and more into that and fine tune that muscle, right, of how to convince the third in the middle. But it's so freaking exhausting. And one of my coaches told me that I needed to stop caring about the third in the middle and only care about the third that liked me. And if I would go to them in the room and just have a great conversation, that more people in the third in the middle would approach me. And I, out of sheer stubbornness, and not stubbornness, but spite, decided to test that theory the next room that I walked in, and I didn't know anyone. And it worked. And so, sometimes doing something as silly as it is, somebody says it's a good idea, like you can teach yourself how to how that goes. But there's so much truth to that. And I think really it still boils down to fear of abandonment and being alone for me. And that's why, like, the powerful piece of like being at peace with yourself. And that is, I think by the time you get to your 30s, like you've bombed through either friendships or, I mean, like a lot of people have been married and divorced, you know, a lot of people have, you know, set firm boundaries with family members that they, you know, no longer want to have in their lives. I mean, all those things. And so I think it's just, that's the secret sauce, is that it's trauma. Like, that's the secret sauce, is that it's literally trauma. It's barreling through, it's waddling, you know, and taking it with you. And you just get that over time.
Yeah.
Because there's these examples over and over and over again. So yeah, you gotta get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Ashleigh, I'm telling you, you changed my life with that. Whenever you said it, I mean, I reference you to this day. Like, fuck all the other smart people that have said it since you. Yeah, you're talking about roller coasters. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. It's funny because I think the other idea of learning to be disliked is really the opposite of it, is that you're learning to accept being liked by the people who view you as you authentically. And so it's not like, oh, what can I do? Like, you know, what can I do to make people not like me? It's, I'm going to live so authentically to what is important to me, to my values. And it takes a while to establish those if you are not from a really good, healthy family environment that helped you establish those.
Yeah.
And so that's why so many of us had to fumble through that and, you know, start to live and be like, this is what is actually important to me. And the people that like me are going to like me. And the people that don't know me are going to see that and like me. And the people that have just decided to not like me are just going to not like me for whatever the reason. But because I'm living so authentically to myself, and I like myself, and I like why I like myself.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
Yep. And I think like there's such truth in that. And like, it's fine. People aren't going to like you for whatever reason or no reason. And that's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. I think that there's so much truth in like attracting your tribe, right? Because like attract like, and you know, if you don't really like the way that your life is looking right now, look around the people that you spend time with and see if maybe the problem lies there. If you think good things always happen to people and never you, maybe look at who you're spending time with and be okay with not being liked by them. And sometimes it's hard because some people do have like, maybe it's a long time friendship or it's a family member or whatever, but like they have been a long time friend, but are they part of where you're going? Like, do you have the same values? Are they on the same path as you? And why do you care so much what they think? Like, is it because like it's sad to lose a friendship, or it's sad for somebody not to like you? I think that is normal for that to always either hurt or make you feel some way or whatever. But it doesn't, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, you have 100% success rate of making it through your worst days in every failed relationship. So like,
Hallelujah.
It's okay. And I just had this conversation with somebody earlier this week about like when you know who you are and you like who you are, not an egotistical thing, not like I'm the best human on earth, but you know who you are and you like that and you want to continue to grow who you are. It can get very lonely. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm surrounded by really incredible people. I'm fortunate enough to, like, every step of growth, I feel like I get new people introduced in my life who just continue me on that path. And I'm very grateful for it. But it also gets really lonely because, like, you have to decide if you care more about people's opinions or your principles. And then you have to, like, make a solid choice on that. And it can get hard. And it can get really lonely. And they're just choices you have to make. But the result is that, like, your life is really good and you don't care what people think.
Yeah. Oh, truly, you do separate that out.
It's so crystal clear to me.
You know, we are so privileged to live in the world that we do, where the world is as big as it is.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking about play therapy too. Like I just learned about this, like literally play therapy where like kids learn how to be good friends. and and with all that, but like how fortunate are we to be able to find community in a billion different places? So yeah.
I mean, even just this, like the three of us align on so many things. We've decided that we want to be in each other's lives and support each other. And so we're able to hop on video calls. Do you know how lonely this would have been 10 years ago when we couldn't do that? And
Crazy.
like, we didn't have this level of like ability to support each other.
Yeah. And I think that I wonder how that plays into this whole movement of like self-development and community and all these things that are playing in. Cause like, Brianna was talking about how she had 70 million individual hits to her website in 1 month, but like 70 million people. Like, that's really cool. It gives me a lot of hope.
I do want to hit everybody with one more quote and then a book to read. If you're like, damn, this is really hitting home. I am scared of being disliked. So the quote is from the book, The Courage to be Disliked. And it's that you are disliked by someone. It is proof that you are exercising your freedom and living in freedom, and a sign that you are living in accordance with your own principles.
Oh.
So if this topic is like interesting to you and you want to dive further into it, then I think you should pick that book up. It is by the same author who wrote Ikigai, which is all about finding your like true north of your life and what you want to do. So really 2 great books, but
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for walking through this conversation with me of through the decades. Don't forget to go ahead and like us, rate us, join our Facebook group, share this with another friend, and just remember to come back next week and listen to us again.
Make us feel like you like us. Thanks.